Initiating Hypergate. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hypergate activated. The portal to illuminating the collective consciousness has finally opened. Please enter the Hypergate now.
If we were to take a book, like an astrology book, and it was like Sun in the 8th house, okay? Well, that's nice, Sun in the 8th house, okay, but it's limited when you're looking at things in structured elements. That in the Hypergate, there's no structure. There's a divine structure that's limitless and endless and boundless, and it's like a portal that is wrapping itself around these instant synchronicities. This is trying to help describe what is the evolution of synchronicity itself? What is the evolution of astrology, synchronicity, divinity, and why are we at this quantum leap, which is even still not a good enough term? It kind of looks like a hypergate, but what's the hypergate really? The hypergate is accessing an old world to a new world. And now he's pulling those out of purgatory. Gosh, does that look like what's going on right now? It's whatever the Hypergate is laying down the tracks, and I'm getting to there, 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 there, to there, to there, to there, and then that's connecting all that stuff. And then there's a epiphany moment that comes that sees down. And so what does that look like? Looks like a couple things. That looks like the all-seeing eye. Most people can't see this, let alone break that out and see this, let alone break out of that and see this. Whose patriotism is without party, whose aim is the establishment of peace on earth and goodwill towards all mankind, whose embodiment is liberty. Here, remember, it's my 5th, 7th, and 8th rule. You want to see if you've got the passion, the heart, and the love, and then can the relationship balance it out? And it's whether or not you can check mark all three. And you can check that by the rulers and so forth. That in itself also is about knowing your own love story in your 5th house, knowing your own relationships, and how you deal with relationships by the planetary ruler, the house, and so forth. But then, of course, looking at the 8th and looking at your intimacy. Quick example would be with your love life. Is somebody really happy with themselves and life in general? Do they know how to be happy? Do they know how to have a good time? Do they know how to have fun? If you're somebody who really likes to have fun and that person does not, well, you already might put an X on that. But if somebody in their chart is, you look at their 5th house ruler, you look at the ruling planet, it's in the 5th house, or they got a pop in 5th house, that's good. They might have a lot of good 5th house energy or Leo energy. You already know that's going to be a check mark. So you can put that on there. Relationship-wise, it's like, what kind of relationships do they want? Do they want traditional? Do they want something that's a little edgy, right? Something that's more exciting? Something that's more risky? You can go down a lot of things about different relationships based off the 12 zodiac signs. That's Hypergate shit. Stop trying to figure it out and then try to present it to people. Figure it out in the Hypergate. But then you flip because there's another part of the earth. Or is it that kind of earth is a big question. And so maybe the Hypergate is us freeing ourselves of these walls. Some who have fallen in love with truth and virtue for the rest of their lives will devote all their energy to philosophy. Others, ensnared by worldly allurements, even to those scholars who have entirely devoted themselves to the study of wisdom, the republic of letters, can hardly bring forth one of 1,000 who have searched deeply into the causes of celestial powers and actions, as well as the beginnings, the middle states, and the endings of things. The water is when you follow your feelings, but you also are following your own soul's journey, not trying to attain something. Doesn't want to look at that fire and air as you rise up, that the ether is fire, and that the only way to God is through living a spiritual, ethereal life. No other way. That's what the Bible says, but really what it really means is actually, and it's in the ether of the understanding of that you connect with the divine source and that you based your whole life upon it. It's the partnership you're in that ends in this world that you jump the tracks. It's the job that ends that this world that makes you jump the tracks. It's everything that you thought you had to have to be spiritual gets taken away. Gone. Bye-bye. So, Hypergate is for everybody. God is for everybody. But an astronomically small amount of people go. They can't let it go. They've been too programmed, and they're in the program. Under John Dee's hieroglyphic monad, this is the sun. This is the moon. Venus. The Aries symbol to create Mars. So Mars looks like that, an exalted sun with Aries, and the line between the connective force of that start point and the sun exalting itself for spring, the springboard up, the ether from the top or the bottom up, that there's an ether above. The sun is the ether, but there's it's also the understanding there's always a higher ether of God, right? But when you mess with this, you're also getting Saturn. And you're also getting Jupiter. Let's say I was trying to hook up with Alanis Morissette. I just met her at a party. In my head, I'm already doing the stuff I taught you. Moon and Scorpio, Leo rising, Sun and Gemini. Okay, I've got all three in my chart. I'm a Leo rising. Oh, she's Sun Gemini. Ooh, Moon and Scorpio. I already know that scores my Sun. I already know that's on my Pluto. I already know this kind of things. Like, quick. I'm not even... That's how much you must master your own chart in your own head. You should know every degree of your chart all the time if you want to master love and relationships, because you don't get a lot of time in life sometimes when you meet people. Is you're going to run a secondary progression chart. Her progressed moon's at 26 degrees of Gemini. First thing I do when I do progressed moon on somebody is I go, what sign is it in? That means she is not very stable emotionally right now for relationships, because it's all over the place. Why do you think relationships tend to break up on average usually after 2.5 years? Because it takes 2.5 years for the progressed moon to get through a sign. Little does she know that progressed moon's about to go through her 12th house coming up here for a long time till it reaches that Leo, right? 8 degree. Like, this girl's a ways away from kind of figuring things out. Although progressed moon in Cancer is good. So you can see the elves, but you can also see the cross. So actually, that's why it's called the Grand Cross. Even though it's pressure, it's where all the angels come together. It's when all the energy is coming in. And the best way to describe that too would be looking at it from a different form. It would be like looking at this. Would be this godlike energy force. And then he's really all about, and he says it, we covered it in class 2, about super celestial energy. Super celestial. So here's that super celestial right there. And then what is this? The world that was created. Now, if we look at the beginning slide of this work that he did, right? This looks like the temple at the very beginning. Look at how I'm already drawing these, how you connect things. So to get to eternity, you have to have the understanding of the body, the soul, and the spirit. So it's more than just that, but it's how they come together, which is what the monad is about. It's how it comes together. You can't just be like, I get it. I'm smart and be laying back. You have to reach out and touch it yourself. Like you have to physically reach out and touch this energy and feel this energy and be one with this energy. It's all oneness, right? On the terraform of the earth, let's say, right? It's just monkeys who use science to understand the earth and observe it. You're not in the hypergate when you're focused on a little point. That'd be like me just focused on my sun in Leo in the 12th all day. My sun's in Leo in the 12th. Hypergate will get you wherever you want to go as long as you follow the divine and you go in the tree of rarity. Like I am an anomaly there. I went around America by myself. Well, David Hausch came with me to film with me, but set this all over myself and trusted the universe in 2014. Just said, I don't know. I'm going to just put the money up that I don't even know if I'm going to make back and see if people show up in 5 cities across America and stay in motels and hotels and drive to these places. This was New York City. There was people on the other side of that door because we broke the fire code. I didn't fucking know. It's courage. It's stepping into this power. You got to step into it. There's no recognition unless you create it yourself. But I got lucky that I had Jupiter and I had fucking my progressed moon in the 10th house. It was about my career. That's where my North Node is anyway. But if I would have done the whole, I'm going to do the easy route and I'm going to do that. So you have to learn your chart. If it's a relationship issue, if it's a world issue and people, or a happiness issue, or it's a health and a work issue, or a spiritual issue, or if it's a money issue, or where you invest your time, or commitment issue to this world, that's how you got to look at it. We're all not going to get the same. We're not going to get the idea that everybody gets this idea in this physical reality that everybody's got to look like that. No. If it's not allowing you to hold that soul and spirit in the reality, or they just don't get that, then that is not it. And you have to exit that. I mean, that's the first thing you have to exit, because you're battling your shadow. And then I'll go and I'm going to decipher this for you, but the eye of the vulgar will here, so there's pauses in there, be obscured and most distrustful. Chiron guided all the gods, including Pallas of Athena. This is Chiron, right? And Chiron teaches how to aim, but he feels weird, right? He's got that look on his face. Like, oh, I'm not like everybody. I'm a centaur. And then look at, I'm dealing with this beautiful lady, which is, it's Pallas of Athena, but like the problem on the earth at the moment right now, and I brought it up in my video I did last night, is love. Well, the problem with the divine union thing is we're not in divine unions out there. Yeah, we're in lust. I like how that was brought up just. And then the test of course, the divine feminine and masculine, and how they get to go. They hypergate out from a horrible situation and save each other, and then decide to come back and try and do their thing, and they do learn their chivalry. He goes through he's the greatest knight that ever lived in his adventures and tales, right? Of course, she knights him for saving him, but also there is that feminine that has to knight. It's not a king that knights another knight. Like, only a feminine can see the honor of a masculine and how its traits are in honoring the feminine. If you destroy the feminine, if you don't respect the feminine, then nothing can be created, right? And we look at this decision point and the cross, that's the earth that they end up choosing. When Lancelot brings Guinevere back to Arthur and choose to go through and so he goes for his fame, and she goes to staying as queen, but with her lover, that's the knight that protects her, that she hides her love with, but she has to stay with her king in order to be in that position, because if they go out of the system together, then she can't sit in that chair, and then he's no longer a knight or the friend of the king. So, like, we'll take the man here. Like, this guy kind of needs a step, but then he's like willing to go. He doesn't need much. He's learned a lot from what he kind of wants. He goes on a date, he likes it, and he goes, you know what, on this next one, if it goes the same way, I'm going all the way, I'm opening up. Okay, let's say this is just some random guy, and then let's say there's a feminine, and again, if you're whatever you associate with, if you're the feminine or masculine or whatever, however you want to deal with it. I'm not trying to get weird about the whole gender thing out there. So let's say there's a woman who's a little different, right? Like, she's really excited at first, so she gets to right here, but then she does I found somebody I like, but I need a lot of time until I get to there, and then I'll open up. But then I don't want to fully be boyfriend, girlfriend yet, because I also like to maybe look at all my options one more time. And he jumps quick too. So you can see they both jump quick, because eventually they both jump and get to pretty much the same height. She goes a little bit higher, but then she kind of wants to keep it there through a lot of experience. And maybe just she needs more of that time frame. And then even when she gets here, she needs another moment to make sure, because if their seventh house is based upon transactional stuff, like Taurus, which is Scorpio risings, they need to get something out of it. You need to define what that is. If you don't want to ask and you're too afraid, well, look at their fifth, look at their eighth rulers, and then, look and see where they're at. But know that there's going to be a Taurus thing about maybe money here, or maybe it's, a 10th house thing, right? A Capricorn thing. So that's maybe why the producer needs to be found. And he finally gives him a choice, because that's what Nia says. He goes, this is about choice. But the architect's really like, well, I don't know if you really have choice. You know what I mean? Like this thing's been preset. Look at how many times you've come back here. How many lives have you come back here? Because that movie, the ultimate gift is what both sides weren't seeing. And we're in Aquarius. We're Jupiter, Saturn, Aquarius. And there's going to have to be a cooperation at some point, like there was with Neo and fucking the computer. Technology is the aliens. The AI is alien. If we take the end of Pisces, yeah, that's Saturn, right? But as we come into it, it's Venus. Now, when we come into Aquarius at the end of it, and that's why we're also feeling it harsh too, because we're kind of in both. Like and we're kind of leaving the Venus. But what is Venus? Venus is the solid state, especially green, right? Earth. Who helps anxiety out is a philosopher that tells you that has way more power over anxiety, right? Do you notice that there is no numbers with deception? Because deception is nothing. Deception is no life at all. It's evil. It's tyrant at the highest degree. Deception is nothing. There's not even a number associated with deception. So this is where it's hard, because when it comes to children and when it comes to young kids, where's the programming coming from? Virus, slimy liquid poison. It's a sun virus, a sun poison. He went with his own way, not the divine's way. He took something from the divine and tried to make it his own. So there are no retrogrades, 0 retrogrades when you're looking at helio, because this is the sun at the center of the chart. It's actually, this is like the physical way to see it, that from Earth, you were looking at the sun, and it's looking on the backdrop of the tropical zodiac at 29 degrees of Virgo. There's so many places where you can connect. It's amazing nowadays, even outside of digital. Now, for some people, when it comes to this human design, is of course we covered the different energy types and non-energy types. But if you're a generator out there, you got to really realize that frustration and anger can mount to where it's like the only way out of it is sometimes like the hardest part, right? Because think of the sacral as life force. Well, think of that as juice. It's juice for a man or a woman in there. Number one, when you're going into Vedic astrology, that you're understanding the precession and the equinox. Like, you must understand how that works, but you must know that 23-degree precession. So all your planets in tropical are going to be 23 degrees backwards, including your rising. And it's not the North Node, it's Rahu. Now, this Mahadasha system is based off, believe it or not, what your moon is in, and what, of course, Nakshatra, but there's padas. So and you can run this for the USA. You could run this for your business. You can run this on your partnerships. Because everybody has become conditioned in astrology. And the whole part of this school is to uncondition astrology. And this one's different because I'm like, am I going to move? What am I going to do with the business? What's going to happen? Oh, Jupiter came in, the ruler of my 5th. Oh, yeah. Your only fun is figuring out how to clean shit up and figure shit out. Oh, fuck, great. Thanks. You have to be 007. What is James Bond, right? Like 007. James Bond, he's a secret intelligent, commonly known as MI6. Bond is known by his code number 007, to get in there and to blend in, but with an objective of a mission, to do the work. Yeah, I think that the beginning part of Hypergate is a wow. And I think that the end of Hypergate...
Before we get to that, what I want to know is, you essentially have an added superpower that most of us don't have, in that you are able to look at the astrology and understand it in a way that majority of the population can't. Does that help you avoid making bad life decisions? Because I mean, there are moments in time where for a lot of us, there's something we desperately want to do. Our intuition says, no, don't do it. But we do it anyway because we're like, I'm being silly, I'm being scared, whatever it may be. You have that added power of being able to go, the astrology says this. Is that enough to deter you if there's something you want to do badly enough, or do you?
I would say that it's like, it's kind of like being in a pool, I guess, and knowing how deep can you swim. Mm-hmm. That the astrology lets me know where the borders are.
Okay.
And so I've jumped enough in my life over the border to know that there's a raptor in Jurassic Park there, and I need to jump back over.
Sure.
And I would say that I have my own inner, like, raptor inside of me that I call Shredder.
Okay.
And when Shredder is coming out, and Shredder has its hungers in every way of life, that I use the astrology as kind of a gauge of like, yeah, no, and that's what I'm translating to people, is I know they all have their own inner Shredder. They all have their own inner, there is even a reptile, part of our brainstem, right? So there's a part of me that's connecting with this very high spiritual positive aspect, mm-hmm. but also knowing that underlying in that is this shadow work, this deeper kind of reptilian, reptile, darker shade. And a lot of people in the love and light spiritual community only want to talk about that without realizing that without doing the shadow work, that the light won't be as bright, you know, and that we have to keep control of that.
You talked before, and this was the big question that I had, you talked before about how you do a general astrology. So you let your followers know about what's going on just generally in the sky, not necessarily related to Leo or Aries or any of the other things. But in that, you're essentially educating people, because you not only say, this is what's going on, this is the energy it'll create, and you do go against the norms of grandma's astrology.
Yeah.
But you give historical examples to explain what you mean. And I think by doing that, you're educating the masses so that there is a deeper understanding of astrology. Was that your intention, or is that just sort of a byproduct of how you...
I would say that that's the byproduct of being a real astrologer, that there's the spiritual side, but there's the scientific side. Mm-hmm. And so there's the need to use history, to use events, to create what we call as a horoscope, but a hypothesis about things, right? But to have backup, like, okay, the last time that these planets met in these spots, that happened then. The last time this happened, and starting to find those patterns and correlations, but that when I can awake people to do that for themselves, mm-hmm. then they start to wake up and go, whoa, that's true. And I think that there's this other aspect, like as you're talking about it, like I do the general because I want people to see that we are all going through the same thing all the time. Now, it stretches out, of course, into very individual forms too, which I do sun sign horoscopes on my apps.
Yes.
But there's a whole element here about seeing what I call the collective consciousness, which that's really when I was homeless in 2012, I came out with illuminating the collective consciousness. And it was at a time when it was more about the collective unconscious always mm-hmm. being talked about. So that was, yeah, my spell, I guess you could say, that I put out there. Positive spell, though.
Of course. Always white.
Initiating Hypergate. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hypergate activated. The portal to illuminating the collective consciousness has finally opened. Please enter the Hypergate now.